If you're an engineer, an architect, or really anyone who builds anything in India, you know there are some documents that are more than just paper. They're literally the rule book for our entire infrastructure. Today, we're diving into one of those, the new draft standard that's set to define how India builds with steel for years to come.
And who's behind this new rulebook? Well, that would be the Bureau of Indian Standards, or BS. You can think of them as the guardians of quality and safety for the whole country. So, when they drop a new standard, especially for something as basic as steel, you better believe the entire industry sits up and listens. This isn't just a suggestion. It sets the hard rules for safety, for efficiency, and for the future of building.
You know, it all really comes down to this one big question. As India keeps building taller skyscrapers, longer bridges, massive factories, how do we make absolutely sure that every single steel beam is strong, secure, and built smart? Well, this new code is aiming to be the definitive answer. Okay, so here's our game plan. First up, we'll get into what IS 800 actually is. Then, we'll explore why it needs a refresh right now. After that, we'll get into the juicy stuff, the biggest changes, including a really exciting push for a greener future. And definitely stick around to the end, because I'm going to show you how you can actually have a say in what the final version looks like.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the rulebook for steel. So what is this document that carries so much weight in the industry? Let's break it down.
To put it simply, IS 800 is the ultimate guide. It's called the prime document for a reason. It's the foundational text, the go-to manual that engineers use for pretty much any general steel construction project in India.
And when I say it's comprehensive, I mean it. The scope is massive. This one code covers everything, from the tiny details, like which bolts and welds to use, all the way up to the big picture stuff, like designing entire beams and columns. It even gets into critical safety factors, like fire resistance and how to build in earthquake zones. It really is the whole shebang.
So you might be thinking, okay, if we already have a code that works, why mess with it? And the answer is pretty straightforward. Progress never stops.
You know, a code like this isn't set in stone. It's a living document. It started way back in 1956, got updated in '84, then again in 2007. Each revision was a step forward, reflecting new materials, new technologies, and a better understanding of engineering. This 2025 draft, it's just the next logical and totally necessary step on that journey.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. The draft's own foreword puts it perfectly. The whole point was to update the standard to the state-of-the-art of the steel construction technology and economy. This isn't just about small fixes, it's about bringing the rules into the 21st century.
So, what's really pushing this update? Well, a few big things. We're now using much stronger, high-tensile steels that the old code didn't fully account for. There's also a big push to align with global standards, making it easier to work internationally. And then you've got the two huge drivers of modern construction, making things more cost-effective and, of course, making them sustainable. And that brings us to the real heart of the update, because this isn't just a few tweaks here and there. We're talking about a whole new design philosophy. This right here is probably the most important takeaway. The new draft isn't just changing a few rules, it's completely shifting the fundamental way engineers are supposed to think about and approach steel design in India.
And here's where they draw a very clear line in the sand. The old method, called working stress design, is officially out. It's been discontinued. The entire code is now built around limit state design. So what's the difference? Well, the old way was about making sure a building was safe under normal, everyday conditions. Limit state design is way more sophisticated. It looks at all the possible ways a structure could fail under extreme conditions, right up to its breaking point. This gives us a much more realistic picture of safety and lets us design more efficiently.
And the updates just keep coming. The code now officially includes new materials like fire-resistant and weather-resistant steel, which is great for designers. Earthquake design rules have gotten a major boost, which is obviously critical for so many parts of India. And there are totally new sections for things like anchor bolts and corrugated web girders. It's a top-to-bottom overhaul.
But honestly, maybe the most forward-thinking change in the entire document is how it starts to think about our planet. This is a really big deal. For the first time ever, IS 800 has a whole clause, Clause 23, dedicated to sustainable steel construction. What this does is it moves sustainability from being a nice idea, a nice-to-have, to being a core, written-in-stone principle of steel design in India. So what do they mean by sustainable?
Well, the code defines it as a balanced approach. See, it's not just about being green. It's about finding that sweet spot where what's good for business, what's good for the environment, and what's good for society all come together.
And this isn't just theory, it translates into very practical, real-world ideas. Designers are now pushed to use less material and think about the entire life of the building. And check out those last 2 points, design for adaptability and design for deconstruction and reuse. That's a massive mental shift, thinking about what happens to a building at the end of its life, right from day one.
Okay, and that brings us to our final and maybe most important section. Because this new rulebook, well, the ink isn't dry yet. This is where your voice truly matters.
You see, the document we're talking about is a draft. The BIS has put it out for wide circulation for one specific reason. They want feedback from the people on the ground who will actually be using it every single day. They are actively asking for your expertise.
But there is a clock ticking. You need to get all of your comments and suggestions in by May 18th, 2025. This is the crucial window of opportunity to help shape the future of building in India.
And here's exactly how you can do it. The process is really simple. First, get a copy of the draft and read through the changes. As you're reading, think about it from your perspective. What challenges might this create? What could be improved? Then, just put your thoughts together and send them off to the official email or use the online portal.
You know, the vision for this new standard is incredibly ambitious. The foreword says it will open a new era in safe and economic construction in steel. That's a bold statement, but it's one that this huge update is really trying to live up to.
So what's the final verdict? Is this just another technical document for engineers to file away? Or by changing the fundamental rules of how we build, is this draft actually laying down a new blueprint for a stronger, safer, and more sustainable India? It's a big question, and one worth thinking about.